Hi everyone, good morning. It is Monday. Hope everyone had a great weekend. I wanted to come on here and do a little bit something different. I am going to be talking about feelings this week. We have discussed feelings in our classroom, and I know that I have some feelings this week in the last few weeks that are a little bit different, and I think that I can relate to you guys. So if you can remember how we calm down, I want you to show me, okay? We're going to go over these in the beginning and at the end, and we're going to talk about our feelings, okay? So if you feel like you need to take a deep breath, okay, and we can do the balloon. You want to try that? We'll do one a day maybe. Ready? Are you ready? So if you're feeling anxious and you feel like you need to take a deep breath, you can put your hands on your head, either cross them or put them together, and you can breathe in. Let's practice breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now, I don't know how many of you remember, but the way we do the balloon is that we breathe in and the balloon fills up. Are you ready? And we let it out. So when we breathe in, the balloon fills up. Put your hands on your head. Okay, you can cross them or do this. And you breathe in, the balloon fills up. When you breathe out through your mouth, the balloon deflates. Are you ready? Breathe in 4 times. Ready? I know that makes me feel better, and I hope it makes you feel better. Today I wanted to talk about feelings, and we're probably going to be going into this for 2 weeks or so. And I have some books here that talk about how we feel when we want more, or when we're hungry, or when we're sick. Today I want to read A Bad Case of the Stripes by David Shannon. Love this book. Her mother ran into the room and she screamed too. "Oh my heavens," she cried, "you're completely covered with stripes." This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to her toes. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I'm fine," Camilla answered. "But just look at me. You get back to bed this instant." Her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids might say, and she would have no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. "Most extraordinary," he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you having coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, short of breath, or uncontrollable twitching?" "I might have that." "No," Camilla told him. "I feel fine." "Well then," Dr. Bumble said, turning to Mrs. Cream, "I don't see any reason why she couldn't go back to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me." And off he went. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon and the Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal, but when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camilla turned all with purple polka dots. Someone else shouted, "Checkerboard," and a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you can imagine, changing channels on the TV. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school." Do you guys remember staying home from school? "I'm going to have to ask you that this is just too much of a distraction, and I'm getting calls from other parents. They're afraid those stripes may be contagious." Sometimes when we are sick, we are contagious. Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago, everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," sighed Camilla. Do you think she feels sad? What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she had been laughed at enough for one day. Well, yes, I see," Dr. Bumble mumbled. When Mr. Cream phoned the next day, "I think I better bring in the specialist. We'll be right over." That's a special doctor. About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to Mrs. Creams. "This is Dr. Grop, this is Dr. Sponge, this is Dr. Cricket, and this is Dr. Young." Then the specialist went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed and tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. "Well, it's not the mumps or the measles, definitely not the chicken pox," Dr. Cricket said. "Or a sunburn," said Dr. Young. "Try these," said the specialist. They handed her a bottle and filled it with different colored pills. "Take one before bed." Then they fled out the door, followed by Dr. Mumble. There's all the doctors. Uh-oh. That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did not feel different, but when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked into the mirror, and there glared, staring back at her, was a giant, multicolored pill with her face on it. Oh boy. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mr. Cream called, but this time, instead of the specialist, he brought the experts. Dr. Gore, Dr. Mellon were the first finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers. Dr. Gord finally spoke. "It might be a virus," he announced. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla, "or possibly some form of bacteria," said Mr. Mellon. "Out popped squiggly little bacteria tail. Or it could be fungus." The experts looked at Camilla, then at each other. "We need to go over these numbers again in the lab," Dr. Gord explained. "We'll call you when we know something," but the experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure. Sometimes when you go to the doctor, you have to get tests. By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house telling the story of the bizarre case of an incredible changing kid. Soon, a huge crowd was camped out in front of her lawn. You guys might see these. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies, with psychologists and allergists and herbalists and nutritionists and psychics, an old medicine man, a guru, and a veterinarian. Each so-called cure added poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots, berries, and crystals and feathers and long furry tail, but nothing worked. Camilla looks different. One day, a woman called herself environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. Close your eyes, she said. Breathe in deeply. That's what we did. Are you ready? And become one with your room. Why don't we help Camilla? Do the balloon. Ready? Close your eyes. Breathe in deeply. And become one with the room. I wish you hadn't said that, Camilla groaned slowly. She started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth, her nose became her dresser, her two paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran out of the house. What are we going to do? Cried Mrs. Cream. It just keeps getting worse and worse. She began to sob. Mrs. Cream is sad. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock at the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was plump and sweet as strawberry. Excuse me, she said brightly, but I think I can help. She went into Camilla's room and looked around. My goodness, she said with a snake of her head. What we have here is a bad case of stripes. Well, who would have thunk? One of the worst ever seen. She pulled a container of small green beans with her bag. Here, these might be the trick. Are those magic beans? Asked Mrs. Cream. Oh, my, no, replied the kind old woman. There's no such thing. These are just plain old green beans, lime beans. I'll bet you'd like some, wouldn't you? She asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big, heaping plate of lima beans, more than anyone could know. But she was still afraid to admit it. Yuck, she said. No one likes lima beans. I guess I was wrong about you. She put the beans back in her bag and started toward the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, and being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she'd been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. Wait! She cried. The truth is, I really, really, really like lima beans. I thought so, said the old woman with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. Mmm. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around her. When it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, said the old woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. She patted Camilla on the head. Then she went outside and vanished in the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never had even a touch of stripes again. I hope that you used your breathing exercises with me that we use in our classroom. You could do those at home whenever you feel anxious. Camilla was sure anxious until she got cured. These are about feelings. And some of the kids were not being very nice to her. Be a good friend. Be a very good friend. Be kind to others. And if you are sick, this is why you have to stay home. And that way no one gets it. Camilla's wasn't contagious. Camilla just needed a little bit of lima beans. She needed to be herself. Always be you. It's okay to be different. Have a good week, everyone. I will be reading again soon. Until then, bye.